Stamp collages with analogous colors. We're going to create our own stamps and collages. These are analogous color schemes, and they're known as analogous because they're three colors that sit next to each other on the color wheel. They always look harmonious. You can count on them to look good. You're going to choose your favorite analogous color scheme and pick out a variety of colors of paper in that color scheme. Remember that black and white aren't really colors, so you can use black and white freely with any color scheme you want, and it will not be considered to have changed your color scheme. So black and white are for free. You can use markers, pastels, oil pastels, and a variety of things to add designs to your collage. Just stay in your color scheme. For this particular project, you'll be getting 3 sheets of paper to build your collage on. They'll all 3 be mounted together and look like a set, known as a triptych. Start adding layers of your chosen colors to your rectangular papers. You can overlap them, you can use scissors or ripping. Make sure to glue them down very securely, and you can layer them and add designs with your different drawing tools. Make sure to glue down all your edges very securely and neatly. If you have a ragged edge, simply flip your collage over and use your scissors to carefully trim it back into a nice precise rectangle. Get a hold of your styrofoam plate. Some are better than others. This particular brand from Walmart is very soft and good. Use the scissors to cut all the edges off of a styrofoam plate so you're left with a nice flat rectangle of foam to cut your stamp out of. Draw a series of small, simple sketches known as thumbnail sketches and choose the design you want for your stamps. Draw your chosen stamp designs on a piece of printer paper. We want our stamps to look their best, so we're not designing stamps with skinny lines. We want stamps with shapes. And here's a couple of ways to tell the difference. This one is just a bunch of skinny lines. Let's add some shapes. Here I've created some shapes in that design. You can see it's not just lines, there are enclosed shapes. It'll make a better design. Now I'm going to lay my printer paper over my styrofoam and start to push fairly hard with my ballpoint pen to make an impression underneath the paper. I'm pushing hard enough to make a dent, but not hard enough to rip the paper, and I'm tracing the whole design. Here you can see an example of the kind of impression you can look for underneath your paper if you're pushing hard enough. We're going to start impressing depth into our stamp, and we've got to figure out what part of our image do we want to print and what part of our image do we want to not take the ink. So think about, if you're using black ink, where do you want it black and where do you want it unprinted? And that is going to depend on where you push down. I'm notating low areas because low areas on the stamp are not going to be inked. High areas are going to have the ink. I've used the ink pen to lightly draw in my bee design. Now I'm using the ballpoint pen, it has to be a ballpoint pen, to press the foam down as deeply as it can go without ripping into deep areas that will not be inked. The areas that stay high and white will get ink, and I'm using a cross-hatching method to push the foam down. About this time, I realized that the foam plate I had chosen was a really rigid one, and I should have been using the softer kind of plates like the ones I got at Walmart. So I switched over to an old foam stamp to show you how the depth is going to work on this. If you look closely in this photo, you can see there really is a lot of depth due to the pressure of the pen. The stamps on the left are made up of a bunch of skinny lines. They're not going to be that effective, and those skinny lines might just load up with ink and not print very well. The ones on the right have more big shapes. They're going to print better. Let's ink our stamps. Put a dollop of ink on your rolling surface about the size of your thumbnail. There's a variety of colors available. Take your brayer, which is your roller, and roll it back and forth in one direction about 4 inches. And then roll it 90 degrees the other way. And you'll know you've got even coverage on your brayer when you've created a little 4-inch square. Roll up and down one direction on your stamp, trying to get a nice even coat of ink, and then 90 degrees, roll the other direction. Back and forth, 3, 4, 5 times. Get a nice layer on your stamp, and then you're going to do a test print on some printer paper that you don't care about. Stamp it once, use the flat of your hand to give nice pressure, and pull it up. You've got a stamp. Without adding any more ink, do a few more stamps to get a sense for how much ink you're going to need to get a nice looking print. When you're ready, ink your stamp again and find a great spot on your collage to put your image. You can use repetition or just use it once, your choice. Use a couple of different stamps to create variety on your image. It's a really good idea to make a couple of extra stamps on some scrap paper that looks good with your project. You may find that you need to jazz up your project by adding a little extra here and there. Clean your tools up using just soap and water and make sure to pat them dry when you're done. That ink can be sticky and messy, so you want to tidy up. Lighter colored inks can look really interesting too, so don't be afraid to experiment. At the end, maybe add a little bit of scrapbook paper for accents. Just stay in your color harmony. Take a lot of time and care in how you mount your beautiful collage project. Make sure your hands are really clean and your measurements are good. Erase any lines, and look what a beautiful presentation you're going to end up with. Nice job.